Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here. This week we wanted to give you a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the benefits and uses that the Blunami app can help you when it comes to running and setting up your locomotives. Now, we all know the app is a free download, but unless you're connected to a decoder, you can't really access or play around with the app because everything's locked behind, of course, being connected to a locomotive. So today I wanted to show you some of the ways that you can use the app, and in front of me here I have an Apple and I have a Android tablet, so that way you can kind of see some of the differences between each, so that way you can have the models run the way you want on your device. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here we are. I've got the apps and I've moved the tablets here behind the locomotives, but you should be able to see the respective screenshots of the particular tablets over my shoulder or next to me or somewhere on the screen, so that way you can see what we're actually doing on the app. Now, as I go back and forth, I'll switch between different apps so that way you can actually see the use of the various tablet and device, whether it's the Android or the Apple, and I'll let you know so that way you can see kind of how it works. So first off, we just want to talk about listing and selecting your locomotives. Now, as you can see here on both screens, you can see that on the Apple here, you see the ST ATSF 52, that's my Alco PA over here, and then you see the ST Milwaukee 18, which is this locomotive here. Now, when you look over at the Android app, you can also see that both of those locomotives are listed. And next to them, you see the connect button. So when we connect to it, let's go ahead and connect to the PA here on the Apple tablet. So we push the connect, and you can see that now you see the green disconnect, and that's telling me I can release the locomotive. Now on the other side, we're going to go ahead and connect to the 18, and we're going to go ahead and push that button, and now you can see that we're connected. Now, the first time you connect to the device to the locomotive from your device, it's going to go through a quick read. It's going to go ahead and read all the CVs and also make sure that all the menus in the app match everything that's set in the decoder now. So that way, if there's some change, maybe you did on a different device, or let's say you did with your DCC system, that way you don't have to guess at what is actually set up in the decoder. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and hit standard on this. And that's going to take me to the standard operating screen on my Apple. And you can see that we were in the Bluetooth reading phase. So it's quickly reading all of it. And when it's done, it blows the horn to let you know we're ready to go. And now we have our operating screen. Now on the Android tablet, you can actually do the same thing. Now, if you just click the MultiTtrain screen down at the bottom, that'll give you where you can see multiple trains on the screen at the same time. But if you want the corresponding single locomotive screen, you just simply tap the locomotive. So when I hit the 18 here, you'll see that we're in the single screen and it's reading all CVs really quickly. And now it's done, so now it's actually read everything on here, and now you can see that the two screens are virtually identical. Now, on this screen, this is where you're really going to get the most out of operating your locomotive, because you have the throttle, you have the green knob where I can move it up and down, so we'll get these guys started with non-zero motor commands so the diesel engines start, because we've got them set up in such a way that they won't move until the prime mover's running. So as we can see here, we've got our Santa Fe 52. We're going to go ahead and start moving in the forward direction. You can see we have full control of it. I can move the throttle knob up and down. And when it comes to a stop, there is some momentum built into this, so I'll show you that in just a moment. We can change direction here, and then we can actually increase the throttle again and bring the locomotive to a stop as we run the throttle. Now on this default screen, you'll see that we have our headlight command. We have our bell, and you can look at the icon. You'll notice that when you have the sound waves under the bell, that's telling you that the function's actually on. Same thing with the longhorn, but because the longhorn is a momentary, it'll only play when you're touching it. And then we have our short horn, which has that short crescendo. So this gives you the basic operation of your locomotive. Now let's go to the Android tablet. You can kind of see the same scenario. So now I have my throttle knob where I can move my Milwaukee Road 18 I can move him forward. And again, intentionally, these guys have a little bit of momentum built into them. And then we're going to turn around and go in reverse. And again, we have our control. Now, one of the things about this is you don't have to be looking at your screen to operate the throttle knob, because technically this whole half of the screen is a throttle knob. So I can come in here. I don't necessarily need to be touching directly on the throttle knob because the app knows that whole half. So if you want to operate with your throttle or your tablet off to the side, and I still want to run my locomotive, you can see I'm not looking at it, but my throttle knob is still going up and down. So I still have control of it. And again, over here, you'll see that the light is on, and we have our bell. And some of these volumes may be a little quiet, but there's our short horn, and then we have our long horn, and then our direction switch. So your basic operations are there. But where the advantage of the Blunami app really comes to shine when it comes to operations is when it comes to your functions. Now, typically with a DCC system, not only do you have to remember which functions are controlled, or which functions control which sound effects, but also you have to remember how to access them on your buttons. So, for example, function 5 is an RPM plus, RPM minus is function 6, brake applications on function 11. Now, if you go into the higher functions, like say, for example, you want to enable head-end power, that's function 16. Well, there's not a 16 key on this, but you also have to remember that. Function 17 is a fuel loading, function 18 is general service of the locomotive, and so on. You have to remember all this stuff. Plus, when it comes to the higher lighting outputs, we've moved into the higher functions because typically you turn the light on and off and leave it on and off. You're not constantly turning it on and off as you're operating the train. So we've moved that to the higher functions. So function 24 turns on the FX3 lighting output. Function 25 turns on the FX4, and so on. But it's not always easy to remember how to access them on this. And so a lot of people will move them around, which is one of the benefits of using the Tsunami 2 and Blunami, is you can remap them anywhere you want. But if you just want to know where they are, the app is where it really is going to shine, because now when I go down here and I push on the Apple tablet, there's this little sound icon up in the top corner here, and when I pull that out, you'll see the full list of all my sounds. Everything from 0 to 14 is listed here, and at the top, if I push the 15 to 28, there's page 2, and again with all my labels listed. So I don't need to remember function 17 is my general service. I can just go in there and push the general service because that's the sound effect I want. So it gives you a much better access to all of your sound effects no matter what you want. So even here with your operating, you can leave this tab out when you're operating because again, it's not covering my throttle. I can still operate and run my locomotive, and I can still use my functions. So it doesn't cover that up, it just covers the single press buttons. So if you want to be able to access everything while you're running, this is a great option. Now let's go over to the Android tablet. Now the Android tablet is going to be a little bit different, as to be expected, but here at the bottom you see the button that says functions. So when I push that, you can actually see again the list of the functions there in front of me, the 0 through 14. And then there at the top I can push the 15 to 28. And there's the list of all the rest of the functions of all of the sound effects and lighting effects that are accessible through the decoder. So again, I don't need to guess at any of the functions of what they can do and how to do it. So when it comes to making your settings and adjustments, this is one of the benefits of using the Blunami, because I can do all of these things in the app. I don't need to know CVs. I don't need to care about CVs. I can do it all through the app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with this Apple tablet here, and I'm going to go ahead and push this gear icon down at the bottom, and that's what shows us or gets us to the settings menus. And here at the top you can see Loco Nickname, and that's where you can name it whatever you want. Here in this particular instance we listed it as ST Santa Fe 52. The reason is ST stands for SoundTraxx, so I know that's our trade show demo that you guys have probably seen at shows or have seen in a lot of our videos, because it's one of the mules that we use to constantly show off the Blunami benefits and features in these videos. But we can rename that whatever we want. So if we want to rename this something different, you know, we want to do just ATSF PA, say number 52. There. Now we've changed the loco nickname. So again, I can recognize that as the locomotive that I'm running. And this is where, especially if you have a club environment, you may want to put your initials or something on there. So let's say, for argument's sake, because this is a gorgeous Rapido model, that you may have two people with the same locomotive. You don't have to worry about it because you got your initials right there in the nickname. And so when you open up the app, I'm going to grab the ones that say GB Santa Fe PA number 52, and not the ones that say GZ for Graham Jelinski. We're not going to put this GZ Santa Fe PA because I know that's Graham's Santa Fe PA that he would be running. So this allows us to run even the same locomotive ID on the same track because all the commands are coming from the app, not the DCC track. So his commands are not going to go to my locomotive and my commands are not going to go to his locomotive. We're only going to go to the locomotive that we're talking to. But this way, with the nickname, you can identify that it's your locomotive. Now, another thing, we can actually change the address. Now, again, with the club environment, if you had multiple locomotives with the same address, you all would have to have different numbers. Somebody would be number 52, somebody would be locomotive 5200, or somebody might be 520. And that way they all differentiate themselves so that the DCC command, which is broadcast over the entire layout, doesn't talk to all of those locomotives at the same time. But here in this case with the Blunami app, I can do it all straight from the app. So right here, you see DCC address. I can come in here and change this. So if I want to make this 5200, I just come down here and hit apply. And you'll notice that it's actually changed the address on my decoder. And it actually indicates that it's even the extended address. But we're going to go ahead and leave this at 52 for right now. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply. And you can see that it changed it. Now remember, I'm operating on the main line technically, but all my commands are coming from the tablet. Now again, we can do the same thing on our Blunami app on the Android. We get our gear settings. Now we go into this, but in this case, the loco nickname would be under general settings, and you can see the loco nickname there at the top, the ST Milwaukee Road 18. And it also has a sort name, so if they want something the other way to identify it, like numerical order or something like that, then there's your DCC address of 18, and again, we can change that to whatever we want. And you can see here that we can type this in as 1800 if we want to do it. We hit OK, and you'll see that it changed on the screen to loco 1800. And we have basically a lot of our basic settings and so forth that you can see here. And again, these are just settings you can make your adjustments to however you like. Now let's say we want to change the sound. I want to change the air horn. So we're going to come back here to our PA, and in our settings on the Apple app, we're going to go ahead and see sound settings. So we're going to click that. This is where we have our main sounds. And the horn is actually considered a main sound. So we can scroll down here and you see that I have the air horn in fact listed. I can adjust the volume of it using the slider bar. I can adjust the volume by typing it in. So if I want this to be a specific setting, I can make these adjustments. But now we're going to go ahead and select the different air horn that's going to play. So right now it's the RS5T. And you can hear that when I press this button off to the side. That allows you to hear what the current setting is. Now if I come through here and let's say I want to pick this Nathan M3. Again, we're just showing examples. I change it to the M3. Now when I hit this icon, you can hear that different air horn and you can see that it's changed. Now behind the scenes, you've actually changed CB number 120. You just don't know it because the app does all the hard work for you. Now again, you can do something similar in the Android tablet where we go to our sound settings and you come up here to main sounds. And again, where's our air horn? There it is right there, Leslie A200. Now remember, this is the Milwaukee Road. So when we click on the Leslie A200, I can scroll through. Now one of the differences with the Android is when I select it, it's going to sample it. And then I can keep it or I can cancel and it'll go back to the other one. So let's say here at Nathan K5LH, it's going to play that new sound to let me hear it to make sure that I know that's the one I want. Let's say I don't want that one. I'm going to come through here. Let's do this Nathan P5A. And let's say that's the one I wanted. Okay, great. I can hit the OK. But if I don't want that, I can simply hit cancel. And then now you see that the horn hasn't actually changed. So when I go back, it's the the Nathan P5A is now no longer selected because the app's doing that all behind the scenes for you. And you can scroll down here. You can see that the A200 is highlighted so that way you know that this locomotive is actually set up to the A200, so you don't have to hit the same thing. Pick this RS5T. That's the one that the Santa Fe was. We're going to say, okay, we like it. That's how easy it is to change it, folks. This is how easy this is. So now we don't need to spend hours calculating CVs or contemplating multiple lists or compiling multiple lists to figure it out. We just go through here and make the selections. Let's say we want to change a lighting effect. You'd basically do the same thing. Now on the Apple version, you have our lighting effects here, and this is where you would go in and set. But because of the camera angle, the second camera, I'm actually going to do this on my Milwaukee Road here, which is on the Android. So we're going to go back. We're going to go to light settings. And since that's the headlight, we're going to go ahead and change the headlight just for an example. But I can come in here, and here's my lighting effect. So I can come in and change this to a Mars light. Now you'll notice that the headlight has now changed to a Mars light pattern. Now, as you go through here, you can do all the different types of lighting effects. And as you make these changes, again, it will change the light as you choose. So you can pick any of these different types of lighting effects. It can be a firebox flicker if you want, even though it's a diesel, and so you get that kind of random light flicker. But when you're done, let's pick just the regular diesel light. Since it's the headlight, we hit OK. Now our light goes to that, and it's stored. And you can see that light effect there at the top. Now, if we want a particular lighting effect, let's say the Mars light to trigger upon grade crossing. So when you blow the horn, this is where you would enable that. You can see that crossing logic is actually disabled. But let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to set the Mars light. We're going to say, okay, so now in our other camera here, you can see the Mars light pattern. But when I enable my crossing logic, you'll notice that now the light goes solid. And the reason for that is because the lighting effect, in this case the flashing, is going to be triggered by the grade crossing. So we're going to go back to our actual operation screen. So now when I blow the horn, you're going to see that lighting effect now starting to flash in the pattern of a Mars light. And then after the timer ends, it goes back solid. So these are just some of the settings that you can go in and adjust, and you can go in and do everything. So we're going to go back here on the Android. You can go in and adjust speed settings. You can build a custom speed table right there on your screen. Everything is accessible right there without having to learn any CVs. Now let's say I want to go in and do function mapping. I want to move buttons around. Great, we can do that. And again, we're going to use the Android app here to show you this. We go to function remap. And let's say I want the FX3, which on this model is actually the Mars light. Actually, I take that back. I think it's actually the number boards. Let's make sure. Yeah, it's actually the number boards. So if we want the FX3, let's say to be turned on with button 0 again, so when I turn on the headlight, it automatically turns on the number boards. Well, we're going to go ahead and just hit this little icon. Now you can see on the screen I've got a checkbox. All I got to do is click where I want it to go. Function 0, done. Now when I hit save, now the 0 key is going to turn on and off, not just my headlight, but my number boards as well. So when we come back over here to our operations screen, whoops, one button too many. So we go to our functions here. Now when I turn off my headlight, you can see that the headlight and the number boards have extinguished. But you'll notice on the screen it says FX3. That's because that's the last function that was assigned to that button. But we can rename that. So we're going to go ahead and go into our settings. And in this case, we're going to manage function panel. And in this case, you can see that our function 0 at the top, we're going to rename that. And we're just going to type in head. And let's see here, we're going to go and number lights. Now, on there you see toggle. And that toggle means that when I push it, it's going to latch. It's going to stay there, and then when I have to turn it back off again. If I uncheck the toggle, it makes it momentary, so I can make it on only when I'm pushing the button. The second one there says lock name. And the lock name, what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to fix that name so that every time it overrides, it doesn't rename that. So we're going to go ahead and name that as lock name. So now when I save it, you can see the name there at the top says headlight and number boards, or lights. Now when I go back to my panel here, you can see it says headlight and number. So when I push that on, you can see that both the headlight and the number boards are on. Now remember, my lighting effect is the Mars light, so when I blow the horn, the light flashes. So this is how you can go in and make the adjustments to behave the way you want the decoder to do that. Now when we come over here to the Apple settings, in order to rename these lighting effects, so, oops, wrong button. So our first one here is actually, it says number or Mars lights on here, but it's actually these side number boards. So we're going to rename that. So to pull this out, I'm just going to type in here, number boards. And now you can see that the name says number boards. And so when I close it up, now the name says number boards. And that's going to store this in the Apple version of the app. Now the one thing about when you rename these functions, you do need to do this per device. There's no way for my device to send that information to another device as of this moment in time. It's on my wish list. But for now, every time you connect to a new device, you'll have to go in and rename it. But once you name it, that data is stored in the app. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to rename it every time you connect to it. Now, one of the really cool features that we have built into our decoder is the dynamic digital exhaust. And what this does, this allows the decoder to sense the load on the motor and adjust the sound intensity of the diesel engine based on the work that the locomotive is doing. So I'm going to move this locomotive out of the way for right now. We're going to go ahead and move that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stop using the Apple or the Android tablet. But we're going to go into our settings here, and on the Apple version, and I want to check something really quickly. So on the Apple version here, you can see my screen where it says dynamic digital exhaust down on the bottom. Now when I click that, there's a calibration process so that the decoder understands how much power the motor actually uses and uses that as a baseline. So it creates a chart internally, and if the motor's needing more power than what the chart is estimating at this particular speed step, the processor will then increase the diesel engine RPM. Or in the case of a steam locomotive, it'll increase that chuff sound so that way it sounds more like that locomotive is working harder. But to begin calibration, we're just going to sit this over. Now I'm going to take this off camera for just a little bit. It's all the end of my track. And when I hit begin calibration, it's going to set my momentums to 0. Then it's going to start operating and running the locomotive. And then it's going to do its quick calibration. Then it's going to speed the locomotive up. It's going to do a quick calibration, and then it brings the locomotive to a stop. And then now the calibration has been done, and so now it actually will go back in and reset your momentums to make sure that the locomotive behaves the way you want. Now, I was about to run out of track, so you don't want to grab it, but you really want about 8 to 10 to 15 feet of clear, flat level track when you're doing the calibration, so that way you can get an accurate reading of your locomotive. But you can do this automatic calibration through either the Apple version or the Android version. Now, a couple of other little things I want to show you. Now, today, the rest of this we're going to be using the Android version because there's some updates in the Android version that have yet to be put in the Apple version. So I've taken the Apple and moved it off to the side for right now. Now, when we're doing this, some of this is going to be applicable to both. So when we go in here, first off, I wanted to show you MultiTtrain. So now I've got 2 locomotives here. Both are Alcos, and that's going to become relevant in a few moments. But when I go into MultiTtrain, you can actually see that now I've connected to both locomotives. This is the first time I've connected to both. So it's read them both and updated everything here. But now you can see that I can access actually more than one locomotive on the screen. Now here at the bottom you see FCN, that's my functions. I can go here and actually activate the air horn on my Pittsburgh and Lake Erie, or I can use the function button here, and you can see that at the top it changed to the Santa Fe PA, and there's my air horn. So you have access to the functions on here. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, if you tap the top where the name is, it'll actually move it to the other side. So if you have two locomotives, but you want them out of the way of this screen, you can move that function map on either side. The other thing is that you can only have functions for one locomotive pulled up at a time. So when you want to do it, you want to make sure that you're talking to the functions to the correct locomotive. So again, now you can see I push the function for the PLE and I hit my air horn. Now, when I go into the settings here, I'm going to go ahead into my Santa Fe PA here, and if you do want to still change CVs, you can still certainly do so. If you have CV settings like volumes or momentums, things like that that you know, rather than having to go through and find them on the app, if you don't want to, you can actually do that here. You can read and write individual CVs. So like say for example, if I want to read CV 128, what's my master volume? I just hit read. It tells me my master volume is 45. Well, let's say I want to change that to 145. I hit write. Now you can instantly hear that locomotive get louder. So now when I come out of here, done, and I'm going to close over here. So now when I come back over here to blow the horn, you can hear how much louder that horn is than when it was before. So you still have access to all the CVs. But what I wanted to show you is a couple of things here. First off, when we go to CV settings, I can scan all CVs. I can read all the CVs here in a matter of seconds. Just as long as it takes to that during that opening sequence would be the same as to read all CVs. But there's a couple of neat little things here. First off, midway through the screen here, you see CV backup. What that does, that allows me to store all the settings that are in this locomotive in my device, so that way I can continue playing on. And let's say I don't like this horn that I chose, I can just simply hit the CV restore and that'll reflash it back to the last backup. So I can make changes all day long, and if I decide I don't like it, or let's say you just want to get more familiar with the feature, you can play with this and then hit CV restore and it'll go back to the last setting that you restored it. But let's say you do like it, now you can hit CV backup and it'll overwrite your previous backup. Now, one of the last cool things I wanted to show you here is copy CVs to other loco. What this will do is this will allow me basically to make two copies of the same locomotive. In this case, they're Alcos. So one of them is set up to an Alco 251, the other one is set up to an Alco 539. But if I wanted to make them the same, I can simply copy CVs to other loco. So now I have my Santa Fe PA, which is this one here. Choose a loco to copy. Well, I'm going to copy to the PLE since my Milwaukee Road is off the screen right now. So we're going to hit PLE. Note, everything that's in this is now going to be copied. But first, before we do that, just to make sure, let's go to our settings for the PLE, CV settings. Let's CV back up, just to make sure that the latest settings of this locomotive are stored in my device. So now I'm going to go back, I'm going to copy my PA, copy CVs to other loco, and we're going to say yes, copy all. Now, it's taking all the settings here and programming it there. So at some point here, fairly soon, you're going to hear this prime mover change to match this one. So let's see how we're going. We're at CV 80, 90, and there it goes. So now I will have two perfectly copied locos. The difference is the address and the decoder type. That's going to be not changed. So my address is going to be there, and my nickname is going to stay PLE, even though I've got two locomotives that are virtually the same. So now it's almost done. Just waiting, because it's reading from one and writing to the other, so it takes a few moments longer. And there we go. So now we have two perfectly matched locomotives. So now when I come back over to my MultiTtrain, let's hit the horn on the Santa Fe. Now let's hit the horn on this. It's the same horn. So everything has been matched perfectly. Oops, I hit the wrong locomotive. Let's say I want this to go back to the 539 that it was before. Well, now I go to my PLE, I hit my CV settings, now I hit CV restore. So now it's going to back up. Now it's going to set all the settings back into the locomotive that it was before we did the copy. So we're going to hit OK, and now it's going to go through and do the same thing. But in this case, it's going to take the data that's stored in the tablet and write it into the decoder. So it's going to take a few moments to go through, but it's not as long as it takes with some other programs or doing it one by one. So now if you have a fleet of locomotives, there we go. Now it's changing back to the 539. But if you have a fleet of locomotives, let's say you have 5 GP38-2s like somebody we all know and love, and you want to make them all match the same. Well, if all the lights are wired the same and all the lighting effects would be the same, I can just hit copy CVs and boom, I can copy all 5 of those locomotives to match the one I've spent the time setting, and then I have a fleet of GP38s running in a matter of seconds, as opposed to having to go through and spend hours in front of it making all the settings and adjustments. This includes everything, including equalizers, volume settings, sound selections, everything just transferred from one to the other, or in this case we're doing the backup. And we should be done. Now we'll go back. Now when I have the Santa Fe, but now when I blow the PLE, you can hear that it's back to the horn that it was before. So guys, I hope this has been helpful for you. This has just been a quick dive into the apps and some of the things that you can do with the app to help really bring your Blunami to life and how you can make all the settings. Now, we haven't really dived too deep into it, but we just show you some of the things. Now, remember, a lot of the features that are built into the Tsunami 2 is in the Blunami. Things like the equalizer, the reverb, and echo, and all of that, including all of the sound of volumes for every single sound effect that's built into these decoders. And all of these settings can be adjusted through the app, whether you're using an Android or an Apple. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I encourage you to try it out. If you haven't tried out a Blunami, go get one and try it out. And if you don't, if for whatever reason you don't like it, just use it as a Tsunami 2 and you can go on. But I've yet to have anybody tell me they've wasted their money on a Blunami. So with that, we hope you like this content. If you do, please give us a thumbs up that you like this video. Leave any questions or comments below about what we can do to show you if you want to see a specific part of the app or anything like that that we can show you off during these videos. And then also be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, why not? What's taking you so long? We put out a lot of great video content on this channel to try to help make running your trains just a little bit more fun and take away a little bit of that mystique behind the mysteries of DCC. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.